If you've taken a college course, then you know that graduate students play many roles, from working as teaching assistants to conducting their own research to helping professors. These older students juggle several responsibilities. The reality is that many are overworked, underpaid, and feel unappreciated. And they're done staying silent. Over the past year, grad students at many small and large universities have banded together to protest low wages that haven't kept up with inflation and poor working conditions. One of these changemakers is Kelsey Wardlaw, a master's candidate in the Latin American Studies program at the University of California, San Diego. Wardlaw decided to speak up after struggling to make ends meet once school started back up in person after the pandemic.
A livable wage wasn't really in the question at that time. A lot of graduate students, which I didn't realize because my first year was remote, were actually struggling to pay bills and pay their rent. And it was just really confusing to me because for my job and for a lot of jobs of other teaching assistants, we're really the sole instructors of our courses for our undergraduate students. So they never meet the professor. So we do a lot of work in terms of teaching those classes, and we're pretty valuable to those undergraduate educations.
In order to push the administration to see their value, Wardlaw and other grad students went on strike. The protest ended up turning into the largest higher education strike in U.S. history and was organized by UAW 2865. This group acts as a union for student workers across the University of California system, which covers 10 different campuses across the state. Wardlaw is now a rank-and-file member of the union and is not only protesting for increased wages, but greater access to affordable housing near campus.
Almost 40% of my income was going towards rent, and the rent does go up every year. So I've actually made the same amount of monthly income since I started in 2020, but the rent has gone up 3 or 4 times. I ended up having to get a second job outside of school. So I'm a full-time student, a part-time teaching assistant, and also a part-time nanny for a family.
Despite inflation increasing the cost of living, the UC system hasn't upped the pay for academic workers. With studio apartments in California going for $2,000 to $3,000 a month, it's nearly impossible for grad students to qualify on rent applications.
A lot of people have had to leave their programs because they actually pay more than 50% of their monthly wage in rent, and they are unable to pay other bills. People have had to find housing off campus that is not ideal for them. And finding housing in San Diego outside of graduate housing is incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. People have had to get multiple jobs. I know I only have one extra job, but some people teach even more classes here at the university and have another job in addition to that. So it's really burning out a lot of people, and they really can't perform as well with all the extra baggage, extra jobs.
She adds that the public university system in California doesn't offer adequate health care or childcare either, which has only added to the financial burden. And money isn't the only aspect stressing out student workers. Wardlaw says that on top of policy issues, there are huge cultural problems plaguing graduate programs.
Before the strike, there's been a lot of instances of faculty abuse towards graduate students in different labs across campus, like in different departments. There was a faculty member that cut off the hair of one of their graduate students. Unjust firing as well. There's also been a few current instances that professors giving unsatisfactory grades to graduate students that participated in the strike, and that has affected people tremendously.
Poor grades make it harder for students to get jobs in their field and can lead to suspension and expulsion. Once these students leave school, it's extremely hard to get a work visa to stay in the U.S. and maintain health insurance coverage. UAW 2865 knew they had to take action in the midst of these mounting barriers, but didn't immediately put up picket lines. The group did try to negotiate with the UC system in March of 2022, but the administration couldn't deliver. Items like improving wages, access to affordable housing, paid time off, childcare, and more stayed largely the same. After discussions fell through, Wardlaw and her colleagues knew they had no choice but to stop working.
A lot of academic workers were at a breaking point at that point because We have been watching people not make a living wage for years now and struggle to get the basic necessities for them to live here and live comfortably. So we just decided that enough is enough. And if you don't meet our demands, we will go on strike. And we did.
More than 48,000 UC employees ended up on strike. Finally, after 6 weeks, the administration came to the table with concessions. The new deal offered up improvements in pay, added support for childcare, and greater protections against bullying and harassment at work. This win has also inspired other students across the country. Graduate students at Indiana University, Temple University, and Columbia University, to name a few, have banded together to show unity. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. In fact, Wardlaw says being a part of a union has greatly improved her life in multiple ways.
Unions just make sense for academic workers. Issues like undercompensation, discrimination, and harassment just won't go away on their own. So unions give academic workers powerful tools to make change. And I think that this strike was definitely a testament to that. And UAW has a strong track record of improving the working conditions for academic employees across the country. So I definitely think it's very important to unionize. And I hope this strike created another snowball effect for other campuses across the U.S. and everywhere to unionize and get what they deserve as workers.
To find out more about Kelsey Wardlaw and all our featured guests, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, check out Viewpoints Radio on Twitter and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Grace Galanti. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson. This segment is brought to you by Capital One. You don't need special gadgets to be a hero. With unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase, everywhere, the Capital One Quicksilver Card makes you the hero of every purchase. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Coming up next week.
If anybody needed anything from the president, they put it in writing directly to her. She wrote back. She drafted public statements. She decided who saw him.
The first female president you've never heard of. Then,
you need to care about whether and when we might finally be able to see a full account of what our leaders have done in our name.
The daunting task of declassifying government secrets. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.